My Hero Academia is a series I really used to love. So much so that I have a keychain of it, my only piece of anime clothing is from My Hero, and my favorite anime character in 2019 was Bakugo after the development he got from Season 3. So like any sane anime fan, I grew impatient, mad that the studio had taken a year to animate 25 simple episodes, so I read the manga. And the series had seemed like it was entering its prime, and we still had years to come of this amazing work of art. What? How could this be happening? My main problem with the series hasn't even been addressed, as seen in my last My Hero video. We hadn't even seen Stain in hundreds of chapters, and there was still so much left to do in this series. Well, what if I told you that Horikoshi did about half of everything that everybody was asking for this series, and today we're gonna talk about why I don't like it. Let's start with the arc that most people regard as the greatest thing My Hero has to offer, except for me. The War Arc, which lasts for 53 chapters and contains some of the greatest moments in the My Hero manga, everything from the development of Hawks and Dabi's friendship, the reveal of the doctor behind all the mysteries of quirks in the series, the display of Miriko's power and development of her role in the story, Kaminari's hero introduction, twice his death, Dabi almost killing Hawks as a result, and some of the best drawn panels in all of Jump over the time that it was releasing. But even still, with all these amazing moments, there are a few things that happen that keep this arc from being the best in modern Shonen Jump. The War Arc was great, amazing even, up until the point of Dabi's reveal, in which afterwards we start to get into territory of honestly just unfortunate events. Specifically, I want to start off with Mirio's comeback. Mirio's placement in the story from season 4 of My Hero, if you've seen that, or like 100 chapters before the War Arc if you're going off of manga terms, was very impactful to the story, as Mirio was the person who was supposed to receive One for All in the first place, and he was the example of the shining young hero that Deku was kind of trying to be, but he was a more evolved version. He was more selfless than Deku, who was more self-sacrificial in nature than actually selfless. And even when Mirio lost his powers, he did it in a way that displayed the utmost selflessness and what it truly meant to be a hero, giving up the cost of your entire dreams as a person and as a hero for the sake of saving, even if it's just one more person. So for all of the development and all of the time that we could have seen him struggle with not having his powers for hundreds of chapters, and the development of him and Aries' relationship, it's all out the window because we didn't see them for 100 chapters, and then he got his powers back in the middle of a war arc, kicked the Nomu's ass, and never showed up again. This is one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen in a series for a character whose importance in the story and his later was supposed to be retribution to get his powers back was so mishandled on not only his part but Aries' part that it's like literally a spit in the face to the character and what he meant for the series. Number 2, the best Jeanist comeback as well. Him being alive in general just doesn't make any sense, and was truly the thing that put me over the edge to agree with the people who said that Horikoshi was afraid to kill off anybody semi-important in this series, as best Jeanist wasn't even that important in the story, but him coming back after the events of the first 100 chapters of the story in the middle of a war arc doesn't make sense. He should have been dead. He's not important enough for you to be like, oh, we have to have best Jeanist back, and he's just important enough for you to be like, okay, well, we killed off the number 2 hero, I'm not afraid of killing people. But instead, he proved the exact opposite, or at least that's what I thought, until Gran Torino died. Even within the war arc, Gran Torino's death was handled great, but the problem comes with the fact that throughout all of this death and destruction that's supposed to be the climax of this story, it's not really felt, because after this arc, as I'll get into even later, we don't get to see the destruction aside from when we're spending time with Toga and I guess the rescue missions that the heroes are going on to make sure that everyone's safe and get people out the rubble. But we haven't spent enough time in this world to actually really care about the destruction that happened. Look, let me compare this arc to one of the best handled war arcs or assault arcs on a series in all of Shonen Jump manga. Let's bring it to Naruto. One of the reasons why the pain assault on Konoha works so well is because we care about Konoha. We see pain destroy and kill dozens of characters that we've grown attached to, or that we've just seen, the buildings that we've seen, the town that we've grown up in ourselves. Even watching the show of Naruto makes sense as to why it means so much to us. So when pain comes through and wrecks the entire town, the entire village that Naruto had spent his entire life growing stronger to protect and wanting to be accepted by, it means so much more to us compared to something like here in My Hero, where it's really just Tokyo, where yeah, we've spent a few days with the internships in, or when the kids are on vacation or whatever, but it's not like you destroyed UA. There's also not enough time after the war arc to see this new society that's apparently running rampant with villains, and a lot of this, yes, can be chalked down to the fact that around this time, Horikoshi was starting to get rushed by the editors at Jump, and we've basically all but confirmed this. But even still with this fact, judging the story off of what it truly is as of right now, we don't get enough time in between this to truly feel the effects of the destruction, the death, and the new society that's forming as a result of it. But that's it for the war arc. I just wanted to spend some time on that because I know that a lot of people are going to look at this video and be like, oh, he doesn't like the war arc. No, I love the war arc. It's still a 8.5, 9 out of 10. It's just not the best thing in Shonen Jump like a lot of My Hero fans want to say. And it's, in my opinion, not even the best arc in My Hero, which I can talk about at a later date. Subscribe for more My Hero content in the future and leave a like. But I want to get more into the series and what makes this march towards an ending truly disappointing. The next arc, the Dark Deku shit. For the past few weeks, I'd been dying on this hill that this part of the story wasn't an arc because it was only like 5, 6, 7 chapters or whatever. It's like 20 chapters long. Granted, do we spend enough time in this arc to actually feel the effects of Dark Deku? No. Do we actually spend enough time with Lady Nagant to actually evoke a reaction at her death? No. But it's still a solid story, and it develops Deku a little bit in time for the final arc of the series. And that's really it. What more can you really ask for an arc that lasts 20 chapters, but even that development is somewhat hampered by the fact that it ends entirely too soon. And again, I understand this isn't Horikoshi's fault. And just like some people can assume that if Horikoshi was not rushed, then this arc would be better, I can just as easily assume that it would be just as bad, if not worse, because Horikoshi has struggled with the pacing and the different levels of stakes in his series. And even though this arc did go away from the normal My Hero formula that Horikoshi has been following up until this time, there's still no indication that even if he were left to his own devices for the entirety of the arc, that would be the 40 chapter long, amazingly written independence journey that Deku needed to go on in order to obtain the rest of the powers for One For All. And that's another thing. Deku basically spit in the face of everyone that has helped him up until this part of the story, goes off on All Might, goes off on his own from Endeavor, and leaves his friends and his family, yes, for the sake of their safety or for the sake of developing his own character, but there should still be consequences as a result of that. When he gets back to school, people should resent him aside from the randoms that are being held at the school. His friends, his mom should feel a certain way about him leaving them on a whim. All Might should feel a certain way about him ditching him, even though All Might is in a very vulnerable place now, where his place in the story, not only theoretically, but also physically and literally, is in limbo. There's nothing for him to do. He knows that. And even with all of that, Deku still doesn't face any repercussions for his actions in this arc. So for that reason, even this arc that's very cool aesthetically and does a lot for Deku's character in my opinion, still can't be held in super high regard because of what it lacks. Now it's time for a quickie. The Stars and Stripes shit. Why aren't I calling it an arc? Because I want to disrespect it as much as possible. I hate this arc. Why? Because it's fucking useless, and it only exists for 3 reasons. Number 1, to show the full extent of Shigaraki's current power. Number 2, to satisfy people's wish for a long time of showcasing heroes outside of Japan. Even if it bogs down the story and introduces a powerful character in the twilight of a series, that can only be handled using loopholes. That brings us to number 3. It's a loophole to introduce a plot device for Shigaraki and All for One bullshit, and now it's out of his system, meaning that not a single thing from this arc matters now, and the fact that it was only 20 chapters ago makes no sense. This arc only exists to satisfy people's fantasies about My Hero being a bigger world than it really is. Heroes outside of Japan don't matter. You don't need to see them. The world building within Japan, within the current state of My Hero, was already good enough without introducing heroes from across the bay. You didn't need that shit. It doesn't matter. And anyone who is asking for that, here, now you have your fucking wish with 10 chapters that don't matter. I'm sorry, being too harsh. Horikoshi, he's still a good writer, you know. This is just a lapse in a series that I clearly care a lot about. This is like my 3rd or 4th video on My Hero. And the real reason why this arc just upsets me is because it bogs down and gets in the way of things that are more important. Seeing the world, seeing Japan's destruction, seeing Tokyo's destruction, and the state of the world with supervillains apparently running rampant, even though the League of Villains is still basically homeless throughout all of this, and they live like it. Toga left the League of Villains at this time, and we hadn't seen her until the war arc, or until like she walked up back to Dabi in the middle of the street or something after this arc, and now it's the first time that we had seen her with the League. We didn't see her separate from the League. This was the time to see her separate from the League. This was the time that Uraraka and Deku should have actually had a real conversation, whether it be about their feelings, whether it be about the events of the story. Heck, we haven't had a conversation between Deku and the other people who are supposed to be in the big 3 of main characters in this story yet. And none of that happens. So moving on to the UA Traitor arc. I know this arc should have happened a long time ago. I know why it didn't happen a long time ago. But even still, it's pretty good. I like the idea of making Aoyama somewhat important. Now granted, it shouldn't have happened right now because his character truly doesn't matter. But at the point that it should have been in the story, it's a solid arc and a great payoff for a mystery that we've been teased for over 100 chapters. This is the only arc in this last stretch that I'm willing to give Horikoshi full forgiveness of, because I believe that even if he would have written it just like this, with the exception of maybe they just would have ambushed UA and destroyed UA instead of the actual like final war arc, or if this would have been the lead up to the Paranormal Liberation war arc, that would have been amazing placement for this revelation in the story. And even where it is right now, he does a good job of salvaging what he's left to deal with as a result of the editors at Jump. If you watched my previous My Hero video, you would know that the ending doesn't really solve everything, if anything, as to what my main problem with My Hero was, which was a dichotomy character for Deku to bounce off of, especially on the opposing side. But even just within the hero society or at UA as a whole, there's no character in UA that like makes Deku seem special. His reasonings for being a hero, that is, his themes, his character, his actual being in the series isn't special. He's not doing anything different from anyone around him. Stop making excuses for this series. I understand Horikoshi's work has been tampered with. This is being rushed, clearly. I understand. But still, there are unexcusable decisions here that could have just forwarded the series just a teeny bit more and could have made it so much more special. All of these bad / unfavorable decisions kind of sour my opinions on the current arc, because thinking that this is the end of the 300, 400 plus chapters that we've been reading, and considering the fact that the only characters to get any type of development over the last 50 chapters or so have been Deku, Toga, and I guess Uraraka, all of that leads to me not being that invested in the actual writing of this series. So many characters should be dead, or should have received necessary development before this point in the story. I simply can't overlook that and appreciate where the story is now, because well, it shouldn't be here. It should be greater. It should have better build up, more development, And I should care more about the state of Japan. I should care more about Aoyama. I should care more about Todoroki. I should care more about this series that is on my keychain, that I have a shirt of, that I bought 2 whole video games for $60 of, but I can't. And I don't. But I hope that you still can. If you find enjoyment in My Hero, I'm happy for you. Enjoy art, and thank you for enjoying mine. Please, if you haven't, check out my podcast. We're now on Spotify. I'll try to put that in the description as well. I hope that you enjoyed this rant, this video, this analysis, whatever you want to call my content at this point. Thank you for last week's 1,000 view video. It's the second highest performing video on this channel ever, and I love you guys for it. Even if I got some dislikes on it, I'm looking forward to reading more of you guys' opinions on my opinions and of the content on this channel. So stick around if you like. I hope that you have a good day. I'll catch you later. Peace.